George Anderson, the owner of a large IT company, was a powerful man in every sense of the word, both externally and internally. He was a stocky, tall man. Looking at him, one would immediately recall a bear, a big one with a kind expression on his face. But who knows what will come to his mind the next moment? No one knows. George Anderson simply adored holidays. He sincerely believed that all these corporate events and joint trips to nature brought the team together into one team that could then move mountains at work. It must be said that George Anderson's desire to unite the team was crowned with success, but not completely. All the colleagues got along, so to speak. Programmers with programmers, accountants, and economists also had their clique among themselves. But still the center of the universe was Sarah, the boss's secretary. It was to her that threads were drawn from all departments and departments as to the person closest to power. So it was to this united team that a young cleaning lady, Emily, came to work one day. The girl was simple, without any ulterior motives or pretensions. In the orphanage where she was brought up, no one taught etiquette, so briefly nodding to the security guard at the entrance, she resolutely strode directly to the office with the sign, General Director Johnson, George Anderson. "Miss, stop!" the security guard shouted after her, trying to stop the visitor. "Did you have a scheduled meeting?" Emily, without stopping, shook her red hair on the go and shouted a phrase over her shoulder that left the poor guard slightly stunned. "Why worry? I came by myself." While security was digesting what was happening, she had already resolutely pushed the heavy oak door and burst into the director's office. As is customary among the authorities, he was sitting at his desk, staring intently at his laptop. "Hello? I came?" Emily cheerfully declared, staring directly at the director with her green eyes as if he had been inviting her here for a long time, persuading her, but for some reason did not prepare any flags or flowers. George Anderson looked up from the monitor in surprise and stared at the guest. On his broad forehead, the wrinkle of a thinker appeared as he tried to remember when he had invited this girl in old jeans, worn sneakers, and a stretched sweatshirt. But somewhere in his mind a second voice sounded. People are judged by their clothes when they come in and by their intellect when they leave. That's how it seems he was taught in childhood. "Please remind me what occasion we were supposed to meet for," George Anderson politely inquired, watching as the guest deftly dealt with coffee and sandwiches. "I need a job," Emily proudly raised her nose and declared. At that moment, George Anderson smiled as if he had won an airplane in the lottery, at least. "But if it's about work, then you don't need me for that. You need to go to the HR department, exit this wing of the building." But the brazen girl did not even let the general director finish, interrupting him mid-sentence. "I've been there. They told me there's nothing for me. But I need a job. You don't want me to die of hunger right on the steps of your office, do you?" George Anderson was even somehow confused by such an onslaught. "And why my office?" He found nothing else to answer. "Well, at least because I'm hungry and want to eat," said George Anderson. For some reason, such directness appealed to him, and he called the secretary, ordering Sarah, "Please make a glass of strong sweet tea and 3 sandwiches for our guest." "No, better coffee and 6 sandwiches," the girl corrected him. George Anderson condescendingly nodded and said, "Yes, Sarah, then coffee and 6 sandwiches." Sarah did not answer anything. She was not used to contradicting the authorities, but her face expressed such arrogance and contempt for the red-haired girl sitting opposite the boss that her thoughts were clear without words. Sarah snorted and proudly clicked out of the office in her thin heels, and the red-haired girl could not resist commenting in parallel while waiting for coffee and sandwiches. "How can you tolerate this? If I snorted like that in front of our Lucy Johnson, I would have been slapped long ago." "And who is this Lucy Johnson?" asked George Anderson, observing how deftly the guests dealt with coffee and sandwiches and dialing the number of the HR manager. "Lucy Johnson is the director of our orphanage, and if you joked George Anderson, Then I urgently need to invite her to me as a deputy. Who do you want to invite as deputy? Came the voice of the head of the HR department, Emma Williams, on the phone. Yes, I'm just joking, dear Emma. Please tell me, did a girl come to you today about a job? Yes, a red head. And we have absolutely nothing for her? George Anderson listened carefully to everything the HR manager told him, wrote something down on a piece of paper, and raised his eyes to Emily, who had finished all the sandwiches. We have no staff turnover at the moment, and there is only one vacancy for a cleaner, just for the period of maternity leave of the main employee. I'm sorry, he said apologetically to the visitor. Emily happily nodded. It will suit me. Then go back to Emma Williams, write an application, and I'll warn her right now. And so Emily got her first job in her life. She tried to do everything well, scrubbed, washed, and cleaned. But she had no one to bond with in a friendly team. Thanks to Sarah's vengefulness, everyone behind her back called the girl a floor rag for the fact that she walked around in the same thing all the time and never even looked into the office cafe. And during lunch breaks, she would sit in her corner and chew on a sandwich. Seeing such greed, Sarah rolled her pretty eyes to the ceiling and, fluttering her fake lashes, seemed to say, "We're all good here. Everyone here gets paid decently to spend money on lunch at the cafe." Indeed, they were paid decently. George Anderson was a generous man, perhaps even excessively so. It's just that Emily needed money very much. The thing was that she was also an orphanage graduate whom she was trying to support with all her might, denying herself everything. Emily hoped that Jenny would study to become a doctor, as her mother had once dreamed. Of course, the girl had her secret dreams, one of which was that dress with a price tag with a bunch of zeros displayed in the window of a chic store across from their office. And every time she passed the store window, Emily would stop and admire the dress. It was extraordinary, a noble shade of blue, short in the front, revealing the legs to the knees, and elongated in the back. The girl imagined how she would walk proudly in this dress, raising her head like a queen, and everyone looks at her in silent admiration. "Oh my, look, our floor rag in a Versace dress. I wonder if she's developed some taste," came Lucy's loud voice behind Emily's back and the friendly laughter of other employees. But the worst thing was that George Anderson himself witnessed this humiliation, who at that moment came closer, noticing a group of his employees at the store window. For some reason, the opinion of this particular person was important to Emily. Lucy suddenly growled quite sharply in a bear-like roar that she had never allowed herself before. "Come see me at the office before you get back." And to all the others, "I expect you at your workplaces." From the boss's office, Lucy came out with tarnished eyes and plopped down at her computer, demonstratively starting to sort through her purse. This incident was soon largely forgotten. The May holidays were ahead, and George Anderson announced to everyone that for the vacation, he had booked rooms at a recreation center outside the city for everyone. There were cheers of "Hooray!" and "Hooray!" Only modest Emily was sure that no one would even notice some cleaning lady. But George Anderson was not the kind of person to not notice someone. As if reading her thoughts remotely, he turned to the girl and added personally for her, "Emily, this invitation also applies to you. You are just as much a member of our team as everyone else. And if you want to take any relatives with you, then please do." "What happened, Emily?" her younger sister asked when Emily came home. "You seem upset about something." "You see, the boss booked holiday vouchers at a recreation center for everyone for the holidays." "Awesome!" Jenny exclaimed admiringly. "And they're not taking you because you're a cleaner? Come on, that can't be." "No, quite the opposite. But I don't want to go. That snake Lucy will be there again with her entourage. I have no friendly relationships with anyone there." "You have to go, Emily, on principle. Spit on everyone and just enjoy the sunshine, nature, the river, everything that's there." Emily thought about it and decided that her sister was right. After all, she and Jenny had seen so little good in this life since their mother passed away. "Come with me, Jenny. The boss said family members can come too." "No, Emily. My friends and I made plans to gather our crew." The day came when all the colleagues were at the office with suitcases waiting for the bus. Everyone was joking and laughing, and this time Lucy was not picking on Emily, only occasionally throwing hateful glances at the girl and whispering something to her companions. Stretching her legs, Emma Williams, the HR manager, settled down comfortably next to her, also putting her face to the rays of the sun. Soon George Anderson appeared, getting out of the car. He was not alone. He came out with a 5-year-old boy. "That's Tommy, the director's son," Emma Williams informed Emily confidentiality out of the blue. "He brings him up alone. His wife, a weather vane, left him and went off with a fitness coach. And what about the child?" "And the child she left to her father. An extra one turned out for her. But George Anderson is better for him. He's a good dad." Emily felt sorry for Tommy. No matter how good a father is, a child without a mother is still an orphan. She looked at Lucy. It seemed she had completely forgotten about the baby, carried away by another chatter session with her girlfriends. She did not even notice the boy approaching the lawn. Of course, there was nothing terrible about it, if you don't count the stray dog that was enthusiastically looking for something under a tree. With a joyful cry, the boy fearlessly rushed to the dog. The wary dog growled menacingly and rushed at the baby. In a split second, Emily was next to the boy and picked him up. The dog did not like it and, not thinking twice, viciously bit her leg. Emily cried out in pain but did not let go of the child. Then the dog, jumping up, tried to bite the girl's hand while also trying to knock her off her feet. All Emily could do in this situation was scream with all her might. "Go away! Get away, you scoundrel! Help!" Men from their office, including George Anderson himself, were already running to help her. Realizing that it would soon get in trouble, the dog decided it was time to run away. Whimpering, the dog finally left poor Emily alone and ran away with its tail between its legs. George Anderson, who was next to Emily and his son, hugged them both. "Thank you, Emily. Thank you for saving my boy. I don't even know how to thank you. You are covered in blood. I will take you to the hospital." No, you don't need to. I will stain everything there." "Emily, straight to the car," the boss commanded, deciding to drop all ceremony. In the end, of course, the day was ruined. George Anderson and Tommy went with Emily to the hospital, while the rest decided that going somewhere to rest and have fun under such circumstances was the height of disrespect. Of course, Lucy tried to say that she was not going to respect some common floor rag, but most of the team did not support her today, and she had no choice but to put up with the fact that plans for the May holidays would have to be urgently adjusted. Emily was bitten badly. She had to stitch up the wounds on her arms and legs, and she also had to get painful injections. While she was in the hospital, George Anderson and Tommy often visited her, and once, just before she was discharged, the boss brought her a box gift wrapped in the company colors. "Emily, Tommy, and I decided to give you a small, modest gift. Please accept this from us as a sign of admiration for your courage." The boss handed her the parcel. Emily unwrapped it and gasped, covering her face with her hands and crying. "Did I offend you somehow, Emily?" "Yes. No. Where am I going to wear this? I'm just a cleaning lady." Seeing that his rescuer was crying, Tommy, who had been standing to the side all this time, came over, hugged her by the neck, and whispered, "Don't cry, you're good." George Anderson smiled. Yes, out of the mouths of babes comes truth. As for where to wear it, believe me, a chance will present itself." On the first day Emily returned to work after the hospital, that chance came. The thing is that Lucy went on sick leave. She called George Anderson in the morning and informed him that she had the flu and hung up. The boss silently looked at the phone, his brows furrowed. How badly timed. Today there were important negotiations, an informal meeting. He immediately dialed the number of another girl, one of Lucy's friends who sometimes substituted for the secretary. But, as it turned out, she also had the flu. An idea dawned on George Anderson that brought hope. "Emily, leave your rags. I need your help," he said decisively, taking the rag from the girl's hands. "I need you to clean somewhere else." "Huh? Where else?" Emily was surprised. "No, Emily, you have to replace Lucy at today's negotiations." "What? How? I don't know anything." "There's not much to know here, really. You will be able to bring papers for signature. I assure you, it's much easier than mopping floors," said George Anderson, giving the cleaning lady a critical once-over. "Right now, we'll rehearse a little. That blue dress will be just right. And come back here, no buts, Emily. I'm sure you'll handle it." The girl reluctantly agreed. She could hardly refuse such a person as George Anderson. "Okay, let's try. Only promise you won't get mad if I can't do anything." But Emily worried for nothing. George Anderson was right. Bringing papers for signing was no more difficult than waving a mop around. At home, Emily got changed, and her younger sister helped her do her hair. And when all the preparations were complete, it was as if a completely different person was looking in the mirror. "Princess Emily!" "Wow, you look like a real princess," Jenny gasped. George Anderson nervously paced his office. The representatives of the large company were about to arrive any minute, but there was still no sign of Emily. He kept going to the window to check if a car had pulled up. "And here I am," suddenly came a mocking female voice. George Anderson froze in amazement. Before he stood a beauty, the likes of which he rarely saw. And he had to make considerable efforts to pull himself together and get down to business, especially since the other participants of the negotiations were already entering the office. Everything went great. Emily was not confused about anything and handled herself immaculately. After work, George Anderson drove her home and walked her to the entrance. Already saying goodbye, he said, "Emily, what would you say if I offered you another position? My secretary? Become my wife instead, just like that." "Why just like that? I think I've loved you from that very minute when you broke into my office and demanded coffee with sandwiches." The Anderson family is now happy, and Tommy is happy too, because now he has a mom whom no dog scares, and Dad promised that they would soon buy him a baby brother. Aunt Jenny and Dad also said we're going to live well, Tommy dreamed. Subscribe to our channel and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.